People are always like, well, now we can't speak to anybody, we can't speak to women, and it's like, yeah, you can just speak to them like you'd speak to everybody else.
Hello, I am here after a much overdue break with the amazing Lauren Alston. She has one of the longest titles ever, I would say. You are the Provincial Co-ordinator for the Gay Street Alliance with the University of Alberta's Institute for Sexual Minority Studies and Services. Did I get that right?
Yeah, basically.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. Yeah, that's great.
So could you explain more what exactly that is?
I support students and teachers in developing, starting, and maintaining GSAs, which can also stand for Gender and Sexual Orientation Alliance. You have QSAs as well, Queer Straight Alliances. My role is to support students and teachers in forming and developing those, with a specific focus on supporting rural communities that may not necessarily have access to lots of the things we do have in the city. It's a big mouthful. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And you started with Masters of Neuroscience, correct? So how did you find your way from a Masters of Neuroscience to this role?
When I was doing my Masters, I was running a nonprofit called Halaback Alberta, which is the Alberta chapter of an international anti-street harassment organization. What we're doing is addressing sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and all those things that occur in public spaces, and sharing people's stories. While I was in school, I got to really meet a lot of really great organizations and just sort of met people and really became passionate. Street harassment is something that affects a lot of people, and it is rooted in a lot of sexism and a lot of racism as well, and ableism, and it was an issue that so many people were facing. It started off as a class project, and instead of doing a paper, I was given the option to start a blog. I thought, sweet, I won't have to write a final paper, I'll just create a blog, it'll be no big deal, and 6 years later I'm still running it. We need to raise awareness about this, because a lot of people that I spoke to, especially women, all of them had experienced street harassment, all of them felt like their voices were taken away, and a lot of them just felt really uncomfortable and that they couldn't talk about it because it was just sort of not considered an issue.
What advice do you give to women who face street harassment? Because I know even myself, numerous times walking to the bus stop.
If you feel uncomfortable, you have every right to feel uncomfortable, and you don't owe another person anything. You also have every right to refuse to engage with that person. And I think a lot of women specifically are told, you should smile, or you look so much prettier when you smile. It's something that another person is saying specifically to you based on how they're reading you, whether it's reading your gender, reading your sexuality. If you want to talk about it, or if you want to say something, you say it in the way that makes you feel most comfortable. So there's not just one way to respond to street harassment, because you also have to make sure you're safe, and unfortunately fear of escalation is a reality. I had a friend of mine who is a guy, and he said, I had no idea this actually happened.
Wow.
Until you started talking about it. So it's really interesting to see how people's experiences are different based on their perceived gender, perceived sexual orientation.
And how important sharing your story is for making people aware.
Yeah, because then other people feel validated in their experiences. By sharing stories is that somebody else can read a story that someone put online and say, I've experienced that, and that really made me uncomfortable. It brings people together, and it highlights that we're not alone when we're used to not talking about those certain experiences. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Where can someone go? Is it Halaback online to read these stories?
Yeah, so depending on where they are in the world, they can go to ihalaback.org, or for Alberta specifically, it's alberta.ihalaback.org. And then we have stories and experiences and events that we've held. We want more respect in the streets. That's basically all we're asking for. Not an elimination of all conversation, but just increasing the respect in our public spaces and everywhere, essentially.
Aretha Franklin said it best.
Yeah,
R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on my vlog, and don't forget to subscribe.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
it was great.
It was so awesome. It's hard sometimes to get high energy when you're there's no one there.
You're hello, little box.
Hello, YouTube family.